We will not copyright or trademark that. We do not have the rights to this at all. Please do not sue us. Thank you.
Welcome back to These Unprecedented Gays, your go-to podcast for all things queer, where we unpack the nuances of LGBTQ plus life in these unprecedented times. It's so hard because like sometimes we do this, we hear the
Oh, the metronome?
Yeah, and like it didn't hear it that this time, but it's also because there was a
countdown. We usually don't get 3 seconds though. It's usually like it's anywhere from like 1 to 14.
Yeah,
because it's like, what are the clicks? We don't know.
I'm Paul,
and I'm Joe,
and this is something we do know. We're these unprecedented gays.
We are, and that was a rhyme. Look at us go!
I know, right? I spit fire. I'm like Megan Thee Stallion up in here.
Why she was in the news recently, wasn't she?
She was. I don't know. But I posted her because she posted her Halloween outfit for this year, and it's Starfire from the Teen Titans, who I love. And I was like, yes, ma'am, I love it.
I feel like she did something. But anyway.
So we usually do our whole spiel thing with like how you doing and stuff like that. But we don't want to do that this week because we're coming up to the elections, and these are unprecedented times. So it requires unprecedented gays to talk about stuff. And this week we have in the studio, virtually, is Hunter Schwarz, who is the founder of Yellow Politics on Instagram and is a political journalist and also mixes pop culture and journalism and politics together. So welcome, Hunter. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hi, yeah, I'm a longtime political reporter. I've been covering politics full time for about 10 years now, and it's taken me all over the place. I mean, I lived in LA for a little bit, and I was a reporter out there covering the entertainment industry and politics out west. And then I lived in Washington D.C. for a while. I was a reporter for the Washington Post. And that's kind of really where I was there during the tail end of the Obama years and when Trump took office. And that was a really like there was so much political art around town and just like protests every week. And I covered a lot of that and like a lot of the political artists who did a lot of this stuff. And that kind of was an entryway into covering visual politics, just like the artists and designers and communicators who kind of make the images that kind of define politics. And so, yeah, I founded Yellow, and it's I cover politics, civics, branding, and design. So it's kind of nerdy stuff. Like when you talk about like different campaign logos and the fonts they use, the way campaigns stage their rallies, the different kind of ad strategies and messaging strategies that they do. So yeah, I write a newsletter about that and kind of focused on a lot of political communication and persuasion. And then I write a newsletter about politics and pop culture called Wig. So yeah, it's kind of crazy this last week before the election, just like landing the plane time.
Well, and you were at the DNC, and so we were trying to like get you on, but it was like we had to push it off because it was like you were at the DNC, and then it was like everything has been happening, and it feels like every week,
every day is a new news story. I know. Every day is a historic first.
Okay, so this is, we're just going to get right into it because I know you love branding and campaign things and stuff like that. So how do you feel about Kamala being the first presidential nominee to use this sphere?
I think it's kind of like, I think it's kind of fun. Like, I just think about like just the fact that they're kind of using this new place to advertise, I think makes it really novel. And who knows 4 years down the road if there's going to be a lot more of this. But I think it's kind of a fun place to advertise, and I think especially in a place like Las Vegas where there's so many lights and distractions, it's like having an ad like that gets a lot of attention. You can see it. There's live streams of the sphere that you can go on and you can see it when it plays. It's like on a loop every so often.
So we make jokes about this all the time because like we feel like there's like somebody in the campaign.
Yeah, Trevor.
Trevor,
the non-binary twink.
Yes, exactly. Who's like helping her with this because I mean, let's just be real. Like she came out of the gate hard with like Charlie XCX and taking on that whole brat brand through the summer and stuff, and the beginning of the fall. You know, what is your take on that and like, you know, and how they're doing right now with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's kind of a tightrope to walk there because you want to tap into pop culture, and the campaign's definitely done that. But I also think there is, at the same time that there's all of these pop culture and pop star references, there's also kind of a distance that I feel like Vice President Harris is kind of keeping from all of that. You know, I even think about the rally with Beyonce, like it wasn't a performance, which I think is really interesting. And when there was all these rumors going around during the DNC that, oh, Beyonce's going to perform, like when she didn't end up performing, I'm like, it makes sense to me because it's like, why would you want to step on your own message like that? You know, like it's like, this is a serious night for the candidate to make her speech, and, you know, to double book it with Beyonce would kind of be stepping on that. And so the campaign really has like there's ways that the campaign infrastructure and like, you know, different social media accounts they have or merchandise that they're able to tap into this, and in a way that kind of removes it from the candidate. Like, you know, we haven't seen Vice President Harris wearing a camo Harris Walls hat, where her opponent, you know, he wears this hat all the time. Like there's kind of there's just you can have fun with the campaign and at the same time kind of keep a little distance between the candidate. And I think that's what we've seen this time around.
I'm curious too, kind of your take on it, because I think, you know, as kind of campaign, you've obviously followed campaigns from beginning to end and seeing like what works and what doesn't work. In this kind of whole tapping into pop culture and like almost like popularity of like pop culture, like, do you think that is a pro, or do you think it can be detrimental, or like what's kind of your hot take on that?
Yeah, and that's kind of the big question. Like I think back to, you know, politicians have always tried to work with pop stars or do things that kind of get attention, because you think about like when you think about the electorate, there's people who are very tuned into politics, and those people are going to turn out and vote. They know who they're going to vote for long before. But so much of elections are people who don't really pay a lot of attention to politics, people who may or may not show up. And so I think the power of being able to use pop culture is you can reach those people. But at the same time, they're just, it's like you have to use it delicately in politics, because you don't want it to you know, make the candidate seem unserious, or you don't want to even just kind of thinking back to the Beyonce example, just how in her speech, like she even downplayed her celebrity. She's like, I'm here as a mom and I'm not here as a celebrity. Yeah. And so it's like Beyonce undoubtedly has this huge platform, and so many people knew that she endorsed Harris because she is so famous. But at the same time, she kind of, you know, like I said, like it wasn't a performance. It was her really kind of downplaying her stardom and just saying like, I'm here as a mom and I'm endorsing the vice president as a mom. And so it's kind of finding what is that balance? And I think that is different every 4 years. Like when you think back to previous elections, like you think back to 2016, and it was like so many pop stars coming out for Hillary Clinton. And, you know, maybe part of the reason why celebrities are a little more sheepish about politics is because we're kind of in a different era, and it's not, you know, we're not having all these huge concerts like we did in 2016. And so celebrities are finding like more subtle ways to kind of talk about how they feel.
Well, and you have these situations where, you know, sometimes too many celebrities creates a backlash because, of course, you know, Trump and they have Hulk Hogan and Antonio Sabato Jr. or Dean Cain, and I'm like,
and what's Kid Rock?
I think the biggest one they have is like, I think it's like Lil Wayne is a Like,
Is he?
yeah, girl. I was so upset. But like, but then you also have ones that they've been trying to court from both sides, like Bad Bunny, and then something happens on one side, which then forces him. He didn't want to get involved in this, but then like it kind of forced him
he had
into
to.
the arena of this, with the whole, Kill Tony Hutchinson, I can't remember his last name, or Hutchcliffe, I think it was, who made the comment about there's a large island out in the middle of the ocean of garbage, and I think it's called Puerto Rico. And he said some other really horrible things too during that whole thing. But
he's
that's the
a
biggest
real comedian, right?
He's a
okay.
They're playing it off as he's an insult comic, but I'm like, you just insulted an entire population of people in a state that it's 500,000 Puerto Rican strong.
Raise your room, girl.
Right. But it's also like, so I think it's, you're walking this line with like less than a week before the election, like endorsements from celebrities at this point are still huge because Beyonce saved her endorsement of her, even though she gave her the ability to use freedom in her thing, which I think is like so great. Like that was a perfect song for her to choose. But like, she waited until like the last minute till she was in Houston to do this endorsement. And so, and then, I mean, do you feel like there is sort of like this, you were talking about a thin line that people have to walk, but it's like, do you think she's getting to a point where she's almost at that curve where it could come back and hurt her in a way because people feel like celebrities are too detached from, the normal person's problems?
Yeah, I think about when the song that all the celebrities sang at the start of the pandemic, Imagine, and how there was like kind of backlash to that. And and it's so funny because you compare that to something like 2008, will.i.am, Yes We Can. And it's like, that's kind of the same thing, celebrities singing together. I mean, obviously much better produced, but I don't think that you could do that in 2024. And yeah, I mean, it's like, the comedian, the Trump comedian thing is just really interesting because it's like, what is the value of that really? If you have these celebrities who are on board but they cause backlash, it's just like, man, that wasn't worth it. So and especially late in the game, it's just like I feel like being on message is so important because these things can kind of pop up for a campaign and just be a distraction for them. And so, yeah, you got to be careful, especially with celebrities when you're not controlling all this. It's not like when you're talking about other professional politicians who are, coming out to endorse you, who know what they're doing. They've done this before. A lot of times with celebrities, they're not prepared for like what politics brings. And so it can be a risk.
So, how do you feel about like Trump's approach? Because Trump, he's running again on his same campaign slogan that he had last time, which, again, is great because they were able to take that and make it into this movement, which, good for them because they were able to take something and then make something else out of it by, creating their own word so that there's something for people to hang on to. So how do you, like, branding wise, and in your opinion, like, I applaud them for that, but like, was that a good decision or should he have like changed it again? Because I know at one time they were like, let's make America great again.
Wasn't it Make America Great Once Again, Magoa?
Or something like that.
It's Magua, Magoa.
Almost like Moana, but not really.
Don't shit on Moana.
But what's your take on that?
I mean, I think there is a lot of value in having a political brand that people recognize. And the thing I think a lot about political branding is there's a lot of similarities between visual rhetoric and spoken rhetoric. And so like if a candidate, like a lot of these things about designing campaign, it's kind of like you see the same stuff over and over again, just the same way you hear a candidate kind of talk about their same talking points. So I think to a certain extent, candidates like to kind of keep the core elements of their brand because people recognize it. and they value it. But yeah, I think the thing about, I mean, the whole thing about "Make America Great Again" is it really is an outsider slogan. Even in 2020, he ran. They had a slogan called "Keep America Great" for a brief amount of time before the pandemic started, and it's just like this really is a slogan about like being an outsider and kind of taking over the system. So I think in terms of the fact that he's no longer in office, it kind of works. It's more of a non-incumbent slogan. Um, but I do think you have a risk of just like a brand that's really old. Like we've never really had a modern presidential brand that's been around for nearly a decade, but that's what we have with Trump. And so I think that he has a well-known brand. He has supporters who really like it, but you have this risk of like this is something that's been around for a long time. And when it was Trump versus Biden, the Democrats couldn't run as change candidates because they're the incumbents. And so all of a sudden you have this new candidate with Harris. And it's such a weird dynamic in 2024 because you have the outsider candidate who is a former president. You have like this change candidate who actually is the incumbent. So it's just like it's like the wires are all kind of crossed on like what we kind of expect of a typical campaign.
Yeah, and I think it's like Paul said, like every day's a new day, and you're probably inundated as well as covering all these sorts of things too, and it's probably exhausting. But like the juxtaposition between the Trump and the Harris campaign, and then also like the fact that like Biden has just like dipped, like there's no coverage. Like Biden is just like, see you later. No one's looking at me. Like I get to go rest and be like, do my own thing. Cause all eyes are on Trump and Kamala, it's crazy. But like, in your opinion, like, what do you think at the like last, like, cause we're less than a week away. Like, yeah. Do you think any of this last minute stuff really makes an impact, or is it just kind of like a last minute stretch to like hope for someone who is still undecided, which blows my mind?
Yeah, I mean, the early voting I think does blunt the impact of kind of late breaking things because people have already cast their ballots. But I do think there are people out there who don't know whether or not they're going to vote, or like they're like, maybe I'm going to leave the top slot empty. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that can tip an election. And so I do think late breaking things can change it, but it is with early voting that starts a lot much earlier and it kind of blunts the impact, I think. But yeah, I think these controversy over Trump's Madison Square Garden rally, like that, that activated a lot of people, and it's like especially because it happened so late, it just activates people when everyone's attention is just like ratcheted up to a 10.
So, like, since we're coming in towards the ends of these campaigns, like, where do you sit? Like, where do you think, like, the different candidates, their campaigns went well, and where did they kind of struggle a little bit?
Well, I mean, it's so fascinating to watch the handoff from the Biden to the Harris campaign because, like, this is essentially it's the same campaign. Like the Harris campaign headquarters is in Delaware, a state that the vice president has no ties to, because it was the Biden campaign until the handoff. And so I think it is really interesting to see how much everything changed when you have a new candidate at the top of the ticket. But it's like the same staff working on that, but it's like a new candidate, a new canvas to work on. And I think that they were able to kind of take all that support and have a really strong start. The Trump campaign, that when we talk about how they're kind of reusing their brand, I think one thing that is interesting about 2024 is kind of all these new signifiers, whether it's like the mugshot or it's the picture of Trump after the shooting. It's like kind of these new images that are exclusive to 2024 that kind of make up like what is MAGA now. And I live in Arizona, a swing state, and I've never seen a campaign quite like this, just in terms of the amount of advertising and just it's really interesting to like be in the middle of all this. But like, there's a lot of ads that kind of on the side of roads that show that image of Trump with his fist raised, and it's like that's something that I think there was a lot of sympathy for him, and so the campaign really wants to tap into that because you have, it's like the Harris campaign is really tagged Trump as a fascist. So when they're able to show these images that make people see him seem more sympathetic, I think that's really important to kind of the Trump 2024 imagery. So yeah, it's interesting kind of seeing how it all comes together. And the final week of the campaign, really, I compare it to like the grand finale of a fireworks show. It's just like everything all at once, all the ads, because like after next Tuesday, if you have money in the bank, if you have ads you didn't air, like it's done, it's over. So it's like everyone's dropping all their bombs right now. It's like all at once.
I love because somebody like posted, it was like the Harris Walls campaign on the Sphere, and they were like, nothing's better than having fuck you money.
I know, because Nick showed me that yesterday and was like, oh, she got money. And then I was like, oh, Nick doesn't know that because he's not like always online.
It's like, a large?
Thank you. I even said Paul would know this. Because like, Hunter, have you seen, it's Quinta
Brunson
from Abbott Elementary, where it was way before she was famous. And it's like when I don't know if it was a bit or real, but she's like on a date with a guy.
It was a bit because she used to work for BuzzFeed as well. Yeah.
I didn't know that. So she was just like at the movie theater and the guy's like, oh, can I get a large popcorn? She's like, a large? Oh, and it's like an extra large soda.
Money.
She's like, you got money. So yeah, Kamala got the fuck you money. But I'm curious, because you kind of talked about the comparison of the campaigns, but effectively Kamala only had like a 4-month campaign of her. Like she brought in, like she was her and then now is the candidate, whereas Trump was like years.
Yeah, it's insane. In fact, like I don't know that we've ever had like in terms of like in just terms of like a political brand, one that's like almost 10 years old and the one that's 4 months. That really is, yeah, that is pretty remarkable.
Okay, so like let's pivot just for a little bit because I want to get to know you, Hunter, and our listeners getting to know you. So you worked for BuzzFeed, the Washington Post, and stuff, all as political journalist, correct? And so what is that like when you get up in the morning? What is a day in the life of a political journalist? Because I'm sure it's like logging on to see who said what and where and all that.
And then to tap on how do you shed all that when you go home?
Well, I have 2 phones. This is a trick that when I worked at CNN, that was like an official thing, and it was like a big DC thing. Everyone had 2 phones, and at the time, I thought it was insane, but I love it because it's like I have one phone with like all my work, all my social media on it, and so like when I go to the gym or when I go to hike, it's like I leave it behind, and it's like it's separate. But yeah, like it really feels like, especially now, it feels like drinking out of a fire hose. Like there are days when, it's an off year with no election. It's like, yeah, there's slow news days. But it really feels like now, like there's more than enough news that I can cover. So it really is, just kind of going through like what's happening for the day, coming up with story ideas. Sometimes, it's pretty easy, and other times it's kind of like, do I need to do some extra research for this? Do I need to do some reporting? And it's a lot of like, I feel like I used to use social media a lot more for keeping up with the news, but social media has just become way more hostile to news, like especially Twitter/X. So it's a lot more like reading websites, email newsletters, just kind of like having my habits. And so it's just it's kind of diving into the news day and then figure out what I'm going to do and kind of divvying up the stories that I'm going to write.
And how do you yourself go through and like sift through the misinformation and the AI and the deep fakes and stuff like that? Because there is so much out there.
Like where's your reputable news source if you're the news?
Well, and that I think that's one reason why I've really like kind of tapped out from social media because it just feels like social media is more unregulated,
Hmm.
and it's like I don't really want to have to go through that. Like, I don't know. Like, there was a time where I felt like I needed to keep up with everything and like all the controversies and everything. But I think um, kind of the longer I've been in this business, I just feel like you need to kind of figure out what to filter out. So it is kind of staying focused on reputable sources, and just like I guess just like being like hyper focused about who I follow on social media. So it is like I'm kind of getting the news sources that I'm looking for. But yeah, it's a lot, especially right now.
And you used to work for the Washington Post, so what I'm going to ask you right now is how you feel about the fact that they've lost 200,000 subscribers because Jeff Bezos blocked an endorsement for the Washington Post to do that, which they usually do every election. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean that's so devastating. Like that's so many. I think for the newsroom, like I think you can understand where it comes from because I think as readers, like when you support a news publication, like you are putting a lot of trust in them and a lot of faith in them, and so I can understand why some people feel like their faith in that was broken. But at the same time, like I just you can't hold it against the journalists who work there. They didn't make this decision, and the Washington Post is some of the greatest journalists working today. So I'm currently a Washington Post subscriber, and I just even if people are upset about that, like I encourage you to keep supporting it because there are a lot of decisions that journalists don't make. It's made by the higher ups, but they're still out there trying to do their work, and it's really important work. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation. I think to be in if you're a journalist in that situation.
Well, I'm also like, why are you upset at the Washington Post? Go, protest Amazon. Don't buy anything. Cancel your subscription to Amazon Prime.
But
or
you
something.
can't not protest Amazon because they'll get you something in 2 hours. Damn you, Jeff!
Yeah, if
So
you're serious about it, cancel your Prime subscription.
I can't. We are so tied to it. I'm curious from kind of like obviously a journalistic perspective. Like, have you been in like the White House briefing rooms, or like what's the kind of coolest? I don't know. Like, I guess environment that you may have like been able to work in that would be like cool to like the commoner.
I've been in the White House briefing room, not during a briefing, but that is pretty cool. I don't know. I think like going to what?
No, I just love it because it was like I've been there, but not when they were doing it.
Oh yeah. No, you can just like you can go in there and tour when it's off.
Oh.
So, but I mean, I think it's just like going to campaign rallies is really fun. And a lot of times the lines are really long, and so the journalists you get to go in without the lines, which is nice. But it's just like it's fun to experience politics. Like I think there's only so much you can do sitting at a computer. Like being able to go out and experience politics is helps you understand like the just like how people feel about it, how people are interacting with it in the real world. So yeah, I've been able to go to rallies for like a lot of the big candidates. I was here for the Harris rally. I've been to some Trump rallies. I went to a Biden rally in Iowa before the pandemic shut everything down. So I mean, I think that's like the funnest part is going to go see all these candidates in real life. And yeah. I'm trying to think like the coolest thing. Probably the coolest thing, honestly, is non-politics, and it's like pop music stuff.
That's fine. Yeah, no,
Like
like
when I'm able to go.
yeah, hit us with that.
When I was at BuzzFeed, I got to go see Charlie XCX performances in 2014, 10 years ago, and there couldn't have been like more than like 40 people in the room. It was just like this small performance, and then just like to see her like so huge now, it's like oh my gosh.
Was she around in 2014? What was her music back
Yeah.
then?
it was like Boom Clap and
Oh
I
yeah.
Love It, I Kind of Pop and
Oh
Fancy. So she was
yeah.
like a features artist at the time. Like that's how people knew her, is from other people's songs that
I
she
know
had
those
co-written.
songs. Yeah.
Or she was, yeah, she was also writing songs for other people. So until she decided to write stuff for
I
herself.
didn't
Yeah.
know that.
So has Britney endorsed anyone yet?
Britney Spears?
Yeah.
Oh, honey, she's endorsed the knife.
No, no endorsement from Britney, but this will be. I think this is the first presidential election where she is eligible to vote because she's no longer in the conservatorship.
Oh, all eyes on Brit. There'll be a
I don't
documentary
know if she's
coming out.
registered or not, but
Girl,
Yeah.
get your registration, Miss Thing.
Okay. Okay. So since you're in branding, and I loved this post that you had about the different kind of brandings. So who do you think, whether it's now or in the past, had some of the best branding and some people who had some of the worst branding? Because I will tell you, I was not a fan of the Ted Cruz one because you posted it. It was basically the same thing, except he just changed Texas Strong to Keep Texas, Texas. And I'm like, what?
He doesn't have the money.
Right. But like for you, like who do you see as some of the better and then some of the not so great?
I mean, I like my favorite are probably historical, and this is not to be political, but like Richard Nixon, 1972, I think is like one of the all time great political brands because it was just like he used the font Futura, which is the sans serif font. And it was like very professionalized and just like very disciplined, very on message. And so it's like, this guy definitely knew what was happening with Watergate and covered it up, but his branding was great at the time and he won in landslide. And then I think like Obama is a classic. Like Obama 2008 was just like kind of similar along the lines of Nixon. Like it was just like a very disciplined brand. And so I think it's really fun to kind of see how political brands like that are kind of formed. Like, the Obama brand just started as this logo and it kind of became this whole system. And you kind of see, it's really interesting to see when like presidential branding kind of influences down ballot candidates. And so you kind of saw that a lot with Obama. The font he used, Gotham, was like really popular in politics after he used it. So I would say those are two of my favorites. And then like, yeah, I don't like the worst one. I mean, the worst one would probably be the Trump Pence temporary logo they had. Have you guys seen that one? It was around for a single day.
Oh my God.
So after,
Oh, the one with the T through the P?
In 2016, yeah, yeah. After Trump announced Pence's running mate in 2016, they had this logo, and it just seemed like no one had really thought through it, and everyone made fun of it, and then they dropped it and never used it again.
That's Donald Trump for you.
Well, it kind of looks, because it's a T through the hole in the P, and it looks like it's supposed to be like the flag. So it's blue on one side where the T and the P is, and then the red bars to represent the stripes. But it also looks like, okay, first of all, TP,
Toilet paper.
right?
Yeah.
Toilet paper, and then it looks like there is a key or something you have to turn at the top, like you're opening up a tuna can.
Oh my God.
Very interesting. Okay, so you're also very big into social media. So how do you feel seeing? Because I mean, like 2020, going even like 2016, you started seeing social media being utilized even more through campaigns. But like for this year, it just has blown up because like not only do you use social media, but other kind of like they're no longer just doing just the talk shows. They're doing podcasts. Like, Harris was on Call Me Daddy. And then,
Trump was on Joe Rogan
for 3 hours. And then he's also,
it was 3 hours.
It was 3 hours long. He's also been on I think Logan Paul's, podcast. He's doing a lot of the frat bro podcast, but like, how compared to like, in the 90s when you had like Obama or even like as far back as like Bush and stuff, like, they didn't have that kind of stuff. So, like, how do you see social media changing the landscape of that? And like, is it a good or a bad thing?
I 2024 I think is like a turning point year because it is the first presidential election year since broadcast and cable television has not been the dominant way that people watch television. It's now streaming. And so you think about back in the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s when television was king. The way you reach voters is you get on TV. And there was huge audiences for this. And in 2024, I mean, this has been happening for a while, but I think 2024 is really a turning point. That just the media is so much more fractured, and so it's no longer. I think about like an ad like the Daisy Girl ad. The Johnson campaign ran against Barry Goldwater. It's this ad with this explosion and this girl picking daisies. It was really famous, and it aired only one time, and it got so much attention. And I don't think you can do that in 2024. I don't think you can have a single ad that kind of stops the world like that. And it's just like people get their news from so many different sources. There's no longer just a handful of TV channels. And so, yeah, I see the candidates going on podcasts as kind of this, just this sign that we're no longer in this era where it's just like the major broadcast news outlets are the only place you go. People are looking for audiences. And, you think about people who listen to podcasts that aren't about politics. Like these aren't necessarily, you're reaching these people who you might not otherwise reach. If you go on cable news, you're going to get people who are already watching politics. But you go on these podcasts, you're going to reach a lot of people who may not be tuned in. So yeah, I think, it used to be TV, even with Facebook just a few elections ago. Facebook was kind of like this one big tool, and you run Facebook ads and everyone sees them. And it's just like, it's not even that way anymore. It's just like the audience is so much more fragmented, and I think you have to be so much more strategic about how you reach people today.
Well, and then I don't think the trust in media has dwindled very much in nowadays. And everyone, like, if you want the young vote, you need to go on TikTok, and that is a problem in and of itself. Like the social media aspect, like I think, earlier we were chatting about just kind of like the misinformation and disinformation, like as a campaign strategy and just kind of like covering topics like that. How do you like sift through that to get the message to the people that you want to get to, while also breaking through the lies that are going to actually like directly oppose what you're trying to say?
Yeah, and I think that's even harder this year because I think about X, and just like every time I go on there, it's Elon Musk tweets at the top of my feed, and it's like I don't even follow this guy, but it's just like he bought the place, and so he's like, I want to show you all of my tweets, and I'm like, I don't care. And just like as like a side note, like his super PAC has left no fewer than I think we're at 5. He's left 5 of the same door hangers on my door. And I'm just like, are your people like keeping track? Do you know, like you're wasting how many of these are you putting on every house? And it just as a swing state voter, I look at this and I'm like, this is a man who has a lot of money, but doesn't necessarily, he's kind of using it to just like ram these messages down your throat, put it at the top of your Twitter feed, put it at your door. And it just, it's not clear that he knows exactly what he's doing, but it's just like it does make it more difficult because you can feel like the finger on the scale of the algorithm on social media. They've de-emphasized news and emphasized a lot of misinformation. So I think it is a little more difficult. We'll see the effect of that, but it's just like I think social media changes over time, and this is kind of the phase we're at now where they've kind of gotten out of politics and moderation, and social media owners are kind of like playing by different rules than they have in the past.
So how does it feel to live in a swing state? Because we live in California, so we're like, oh yeah, we're already Democrat.
We don't get to swing. I will say that my work is home offices in Cleveland, Ohio, and I think they're technically a swing state, borderline like not. But like I saw some attack ads, and it was very funny because it was like, blah, 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 it's too liberal for Ohio. And then you're like, on the opposite side, you're like, they're too conservative for Ohio. And it's like, well, who is here for Ohio? Who do I pick?
Well, one thing that is nice is like it used to be because I write about ads so often, it's really frustrating when you go on YouTube to look up an ad and you have to watch a pre-roll ad before you watch an ad. I'm just like, this is not fair. And
YouTube
like
Premium.
I'm
You
like
need
I'm getting
YouTube
hit by
Premium.
like yeah. But now in a swing state, I don't like I get served ads. I'm like, oh, that is a great story idea that I never would have seen. So it's just like, yeah, a lot of text, a lot of mailers, a lot of yard signs, um, billboards. I mean, there's like, yeah, there's like a Kamala Harris billboard. There's Arizona Republicans for Harris billboards everywhere. Um, just, I mean, even today, I was just trying. There was like a mini uh, Trump parade with a few trucks with Trump flags. They're like driving around. So it's just like you definitely feel it, and definitely a lot in this past week. Just like advertising everywhere.
And like, didn't was Arizona one of the states that just had like somebody set a polling
Oh, I saw that,
box
the Dropbox.
yeah, like on fire or something? I know it was in a couple of other states too, but I wasn't sure if that was in Arizona as well.
Yeah, I don't know the latest on that. But it is like there is like I know in Maricopa County they record like all of like the election headquarters. It's streaming 24/7 to always record it. It's just like one of these things they did to like be more transparent. Like it really is, and just like the kind of speaking about branding, like the county just recently rebranded, and you see like a lot of their messaging about um, how to vote, how to track your ballot. Like I think they're trying to be really proactive because there was a lot of Arizona was the closest swing state in 2020, and I don't know how it's going to end up this year, but it's just there's a lot of attention paid to it, and so I think and a lot of misinformation about voter fraud, and so I just think that like the counties have tried to be really proactive about that so that they can say like, hey, everything is we're doing it by the rules, everything's transparent. You can go vote, you can check the status of your vote online to make sure it was counted. So it's kind of scary, but I think that they're doing a good job of keeping people informed.
So, since you live in Arizona, I have to ask this question because like it's like it just popped in my head, but I'm like, okay, so from a branding standpoint and a political standpoint, Carrie Lake, did she just firebombed her own campaign by just like for the last 4 years or 2 years, like complaining about how her own election was stolen, trying to be like the female Donald Trump, through her own stuff. Cause it's just like
With the Vaseline on the camera lens.
yeah. And then
blur.
it's like, and it's like, and she's now going up against Gallegos who,
She's running again?
yeah, she's running
Oh,
again.
Lord. And she's Maricopa County. Oh, Lord.
Right. So, like, from a standpoint about branding and stuff, do you feel like she firebombed her own campaign, and are people just like tired of it, or is she still in the running? Basically,
Is she relevant? Yeah.
Okay, so polls show Trump ahead in Arizona, but Lake far behind. So there's a disconnect there, which is really interesting because to me, it's like those two go hand in hand. Like I just feel like if you vote for Trump, you vote for Lake. I just feel like their supporters are really aligned, but I think she has really hurt herself here because it's like independents do make up a huge segment of the voting population here, and you really need to get them on board. And so I think attacks that she has made on the McCain campaign have really hurt her, and there was also this example of her like leaking audio from some state Republican people, and I think it like kind of turned off a lot of Republicans. And it's like in a state like Arizona, you need everyone on your team, and you need to reach across the aisle. Like that's the only way you can win here. And so I do think that she made some mistakes early on that have cost her with a lot of voters in her own party. So yeah, it's pretty surprising to see her pulling behind Trump in the state.
From your standpoint, what has Harris done that you wish she hadn't, or something that she has done branding wise, or just getting herself out there that you wish that she had done early on that she still hasn't done? And then and then what has Trump done that you were like, oh, that was like really smart and savvy of him to do?
I mean, right off the bat, the smartest thing I think Trump has done, we talked about this previously, was just podcasts, and I think he kind of set the tone there, because I think that, like, kind of having a long form conversation gives him a chance to kind of be more personable. And so I think that those were really valuable to him early on. For Harris, I mean, I think there was a lot of complaints early on about her not doing media, and I do think that you can reach a lot of voters with maybe doing that earlier, if she'd have kind of gone on some more non-traditional news outlets earlier. And I think a big question that we won't be able to answer until after the election, that is her outreach across party lines. If that's effective, I think that it'll look really smart. And if it's not, I think people will be frustrated that she spent a lot of time reaching across. But I think, it all depends on how effective that is. But I don't know that we've ever had kind of cross party political campaigning is always really effective, because you have a lot of these voters who appreciate reaching across the aisle, and we've never really had a candidate who's done it to this extent of Harris. Like, she really is. Her rally on the ellipse was really like this message of like, I want to be a president for all Americans, even if you don't vote for me. And she is making a lot of effort to reach out to Republican voters. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the effects of that, how many voters are really swayed by that and find that convincing.
I also feel like it's never a waste of time for a reach around.
You're not wrong with that. I want to kind of piggyback off of that too, because I think like, I'm curious in terms of like not only just like the like cross the aisle sort of thing, but cross the states, because a lot of kind of the mass exodus, I don't know what the word is, people leaving really, really blue states to go to less blue states or more Republican states. Like, have you covered any of that, or do you have any kind of like finger on the pulse of like how that would make any impact on this election? Or from your standpoint, is it really just kind of like null and void because it's all so close?
No, I think that could end up being like one of the surprising stories of the election, because it's the first presidential election since everything's kind of shifted around. I know in Arizona you see a lot of political messaging that is "Don't California my Arizona." Like, it's like there is this awareness of, oh, these out of state Californians are moving in, and so I do think that affects the politics. But I look at a state like Texas, and Ted Cruz, he's in a really close race, which is crazy, but he's been in a close race before. And it's such a deep red state. And I think Democrats are kind of always hoping they're at the tipping point there. And who knows, maybe this is the year. And, you have so many people moving to the state who feel differently. And, that could affect politics. I don't know the full extent that that's going to happen, but I do think that is a big story of this election.
So, on a pop culture tip right here, do you feel like The Simpsons are right? Because, like,
all the time,
right? Well, but
all
like,
the time.
But like Lisa, they just had this picture of like Kamala in an all purple outfit with sort of like a pearl necklace, and it was Lisa in the White House in a purple outfit with kind of like a pearl necklace.
Wait, from how long ago?
Right. This was like years and years ago from this episode.
The Simpsons they have somehow time traveled.
Right.
I'm guaranteeing it.
Right after that, but that episode, Lisa was like, we've inherited a horrible budget or something like that by President Trump. And I'm like, oh, does that mean we're getting ready to have a female president? I mean, like from a pop culture standpoint, you got to admit that's crazy that Simpsons have gotten so many things right?
They always know.
It's like
That's how we just need to watch more Simpsons and we can understand the future.
I was going to say they have Nostradamus working for them or something.
It's kind of creepy. It's a little eerie to the like all of the stuff that they've predicted that has happened.
Okay, so we're gonna pivot again because I want a funny story from you about Nick,
Oh my gosh, a funny story about Nick.
and it can be the one where he blacked out at Madonna.
Oh, were you there for
Oh my
that?
gosh, we did.
Oh,
Yeah, Wells Fargo Arena Rebel Heart Tour. It was the first time I've ever seen Madonna live. It was an amazing experience, and oh my gosh, yeah, Nick had a lot of fun too. It was off the record, so I can't go into too much detail. But Madonna was amazing.
Well, so kind of on like a lighter note, right? Like, what kind of keeps you like centered, right? You cover some heavy stuff. You're in the thick of like a lot of things that are really depressing, really hard to like just kind of take on. Like, how do you just like have a little bit of lightness to your day? Like, what are some things that you do on a personal level that kind of break that all up?
Yeah, I like running is really important to me. I think just because, and I like going running a lot at like sundown because it's just like you can watch that happen, and it's just like really peaceful, and it just feels like nothing else in the world matters. And so for me, it's a lot of like disconnecting, running, lifting, hiking, listening to music, and just not thinking about politics. But yeah, I think that's what's really important to me, and I think just like being able to separate work life from personal life is really big. And I just think I think it is like when I got started in politics, like it was a dream come true because I was just like I'm the kid who sat front row in social studies class. Like that's why I got into journalism. Like I love social studies, I love history, I love current events, and it's like so much fun. Um, and I think kind of that aspect of being able to feel like you are sitting at front row history and kind of seeing things unfold is really fun. But I do think there kind of comes a point where you realize like if I want to do this long term, I need this to be sustainable for me. And so it is like I think it's a career that can kind of like eat everything. And I just found like I need to be really conscientious about kind of drawing a line and being like, this is my work life, this is personal life. I'm leaving my work phone at home. I don't care what happens with politics. I'll get to that tomorrow, kind of thing. And just I just think being conscientious and kind of like checking out is really important.
And what would you say to people? How can they get involved, in politics, like even just like on a local, like helping out with election campaigns and stuff like that on a local or even a national level? I mean, we're getting towards the end. It's the last couple of days. I don't know if there's anything anybody can do now, but like coming
Vote.
up to
They can vote.
Well, they can vote, yes, but like just like within like even in their own town, if they're what are kind of like resources that they should look for?
It depends on what you want to do, but I think being civically engaged is just like the number one thing is to be informed, to kind of keep up with what's going on in your community. There's a lot of opportunities. I think if there is like a political cause you're interested in or a candidate, there's always volunteer opportunities for that. But even just like to help out with like your local elections, like I know that there's election workers in a lot of counties that they have like volunteer efforts. And so I think there's a lot of ways you can get involved that way. But, I also I think politics can feel really overwhelming. And this is something that former First Lady Michelle Obama talks about. She talks about how like a lot of young girls come to her and like, hey, I want to change the world. And like, they're just like really young and gung ho and ambitious. And like, I want to do all this, but I have like life getting in the way. I'm like a student. I'm young. I don't have a voice. And just, I think people like look to her as an inspirational figure, and they kind of feel like there's so much more I want to do in my life, and how do I get there? And her big thing is just like you need to kind of start where you are in your community. I think that is really important. Like politics can feel so big and overwhelming, and I feel like this election more than any has really shown us that. Like there's only so much you can do because it's like none of us made the decision for President Biden to drop out. None of us made the decision of the security at former President Trump's Butler rally. Like there's all these things that are like happening that are out of our control, and I think just kind of like focusing on what you can do in your community can kind of make a lot of this overwhelming stuff like feel like it's more in your control when you're kind of focused on making your community a better place.
Okay, so final question before we go: what message do you have to those undecided voters out there that are sitting out there still thinking?
Man, a message to undecided voters. I mean, I think voting is really important. It's something for me. It's something that my dad taught me. He always voted. He never missed an election. He always made sure I got my ballot absentee. And so voting's just always been important to me. And I think kind of taking the time to figure out what you care about and the candidates that will support that is really important. And, we get to do this every 2 to 4 years and just use the opportunity now. Your voice, your vote.
See, I'm to all the undecided voters out there. Okay, I don't care who you vote for. That is your thing. That is on you. I want you to vote, but I also want you to vote with your heart, your morals, everything that makes you. Take that in consideration because it's, we all live in an echo chamber sometimes. And so we want to make sure that your voice sometimes comes through because it's like, it may just bounce back to somebody, but it's like, we want to hear you.
Well, and this is what America is built on, as a democracy. And like, it's our civic duty. Like when everyone's like, I can't believe when people are like, oh my God, I'm so annoyed. It's like, but you have like, what Hunter, kind of what you were saying about like getting like in it, like in DC, like when we were in DC, we went to the House of Representatives to watch some hearings, and we were like 3 hours away from seeing AOC, which I'll never let myself live down. But like seeing politics in action, like there's just this thing about like engagement, and it's like, oh, I know that like I feel like my voice doesn't matter, but it's way bigger than what I thought it was. And a vote is so much more than just like a little dotted thing that you shade in. But like, we do have the ability to change our country for the better. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand or they can't see. But that all happens with voting in local and federal election.
All right, Hunter. So tell all of our listeners how they can follow you, where they can find you. Not like your home location, okay, but like on the socials.
Maricopa County. He's actually with Carrie Lake.
He's running around Arizona at sundown.
Oh my God! Cut to Carrie Lake's in the background. Hi, with her Vaseline blur.
So go ahead, Hunter.
Yeah, you can find me at Hunter Schwarz, HunterSchwarz on social media. Yellow Politics, you can follow that on Instagram, and you can follow the newsletter at yellowpolitics.com. YELLO, like hello from yellow.
Also, and then what about WIG? That can they find that through Yellow Politics? That's WHIG, correct?
Yeah, wig.substack.com.
Oh.
Yep, like the party.
Oh.
Is it is your newsletter free?
Party. Yeah, it is. I have paid subscribers to get like full access, but the mailing list is free. And Wig is completely free. That's a new newsletter I started, and that focuses politics on the front, pop culture in the back.
Oh, okay. And is that for paid? That's like all I can hear of is like, and for my paid subscribers, thank you for my Patreon because you make this possible. I watch a lot of YouTube. Sorry.
Okay, so one last question for you before we go. What, if you were running for president, would be your slogan?
My slogan would be now's the time. Hunter Schwarz for president.
Oh, what would yours be, Paul?
Democrat in the front, Republican in the back.
That makes sense because I feel like a lot of the Republicans are bottoms.
Well, that I'm looking to get fucked. So, what about you, Joe?
I feel like mine would just be like, get girl.
The 5 G's. Good God, girl, get a grip.
Oh. Or RuPaul for president. Actually, no, she's fracking still. So maybe not.
So maybe not. All right.
Man.
Well, thank you, Hunter, so much for being here. This is amazing. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And everybody, please, we know it's a couple of days till Super Tuesday, or maybe you're listening to this after Super Tuesday. I don't know, but
just be involved.
Yes, and hopefully you voted, or you are going to go vote, or whatever. Just get out there and do your civic duty,
your civic responsibility.
Have a great week, everyone. Thanks.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to These Unprecedented Gays. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and join us next time as we continue exploring the ever-changing landscape of queer life. Until then, stay proud, stay fierce, and stay unprecedented.